Funky classic rock.
In 1984, we saw the formation of this band roll out in front of us on MTV as they gave us the hits New Thing and Fly High Michelle. They've been on tour with Poison, Def Leppard, REO Speedwagon, just to name a few, after 2 gold records and being proclaimed by Rolling Stone magazine as the hot band of the year. Co-founder and bassist of Enuff Z'Nuff, Chip Z'Nuff. He's here. Welcome, Chip.
Oh, it's good to hear your voices. I'll tell you, I've been sequestered in the studio for the last couple of months.
Well, isn't that a good thing?
And it's very quiet, so it's nice to hear voices of people that hail rock and roll.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. Do we ever? And do your followers hail you? Everyone's been so excited about you coming on the air with us. What do you think that thing is, Chip, that you have to have kept fans following you after all of these years?
Well, I'd like to believe it's the songs. I think we've written some great material. We put out some solid records, and in this day and age, there's not many bands that are going to be coming out and having a catalog full of material like we have through our career. You know, there's some good groups out there too. Not downplaying at all. When I see bands like Greta Van Fleet and Mammoth, Rival Sons, Dirty Honey, Vintage Trouble, Lemon Twigs. There's a lot of good groups that are out there playing rock and roll and pop and metal. And it's a big potpourri out there, and we're at a time right now where luck is the resident of design. You should go out there and you make records and you hope for the best. And I'd certainly like to see some bands have long, illustrious careers. But we just put out our 16th record, and we probably have 22 albums out right now with live records and the bootlegs that are out there. There's plenty of material and fodder out there of Enuff Z'Nuff. And I contribute that to it's a gift from above. It really is.
Yeah.
Who ever thought that, we put the band together in 84 and now here we are all these years later still making records and touring around the country. It's really a miracle, Kiki.
Well, it's also, I would think, a lot of hard work on your part as well, because you have to work to keep this wheel rolling, right?
Well, there's, as I said earlier, there's plenty of fodder to write about out there. There's tons of subject matter. If I can quote the great John Lennon, I've said it before in interviews, but it's such a great quote. John said, all the great songs have already been written. It's up to us as artists to find them and bring them down to you. And that's basically what it is. You can go for a month or two without writing anything, and all of a sudden, in a day, you come up with 3 great ideas. And I have a studio here in Blue Island where I live. So I can record anytime I want to, and you can pass tracks around. In the old days, everything was on 2-inch tape, and you record it, and you have to fly guys in to play on parts. Nowadays, you can just send the material over to who's ever going to play on it. Like this last record we just did, got Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater to play drums on the track. Mm-hmm. And I normally probably wouldn't be able to get Mike. It costs a Brinks truck full of money, first of all, and then he lives far away, but he's my cousin, so he was kind enough to play on it. And I got Dax Nielsen to come down and play on some stuff as well from Cheap Trick. So it's good when you can make records and you can call your colleagues to come in there and lend their helping expertise hands on these songs. And that's what we've done throughout our whole career. We've made a lot of records, and we've gotten a lot of guys to come down there and cameo with us as well. I think the fans love that. Absolutely, and you definitely have a great network of artists behind you. Now, Chip, before the lockdown, you and the band were on the Monsters of Rock cruise, having a great old time. Did you have any idea that just a few weeks later, the entire world would be shut down? Of course not. That Monster Rock cruise, they have it every single year. It's incendiary. It's just packed with people. It's like 3,500 people on a boat, and they're all fans of all the bands that are on there. And everybody's hanging out. There's nowhere to hide. And you don't want to hide anyway. You want to hang out with those people that have supported you through your whole career. And to see guys like Tesla and Extreme getting up there and playing sets, and then some of the bands call you up, Faster Pussycat, King's X, fantastic band. There's too many I'm not mentioning, I'm sorry, but there's just so many groups that are on there. If anybody gets a chance to go on a cruise, that's where you want to go. And next year they're doing it again. I think it's in May, and it's going to be on an island, so it's no ship cruise at all. You fly to the island, you stay there, and you're sequestered on this island for 5-6 days. And talk about promiscuity and substance abuse. Everyone's partying, having a great time, and it's all night food 24/7, drink 24/7, and rock and roll 24/7. You just can't go wrong. It's a celebration of life.
Now, to be honest, the cruise, yes, they have fascinated me, those rock cruises, but to me, the island thing would be the way to go.
Yeah, I did one with Moody Blues Cruise, too, as well, where you're on the ship, and all the bands from that era are playing. They were fabulous, by the way. Justin Hayward, what a great singer.
Man.
And you got a chance to hang with these guys after they're done playing. I did the Kiss Cruise as well, and Paul and Gene and the boys came down and watched Enuff Z'Nuff play their set. So it's a great time to network as well. But you want to go see your favorite rock stars, that's where you want to go. And I think on an island, it's going to be much simpler as opposed to going on a boat.
Yeah.
The ship is fantastic, don't get me wrong.
Right.
And people are having a great time 24/7, as I said before. But on that island, I think you just could go out to the beach, go swimming, get on a little motorcycle, go cruise around. If you're looking for drugs, you can find that out there, too, because they sell them like crazy right off the border. It's unbelievable.
Awesome.
Everything that you could imagine wanting is on that cruise every single year. And that's why it's been so successful because, as I said earlier, it's a big celebration of life. Everybody together in one place for 6 days. It's incredible.
Now, just say, like, I'm walking around. Oh, my God, Chip, you want to go for a swim? I mean, do you hang out with the fans like that?
Absolutely. I'm not going swimming probably, and I'm a good swimmer, by the way. But I probably would hang out with the fans. Absolutely. On all the cruises I'm out there, that's all I do. I get off an elevator, and I'm signing 15, 20 autographs. I'm taking pictures, and that's the job.
Yeah.
That's what you hired. That's what you signed up for. That's all part of it. And without the fans, there is no bands.
No, and again, I love it when the artists I speak to feel that way because some don't, and some are very removed from the fans, but a lot of you are just knee deep in everyone, which is amazing, and everyone appreciates that as well.
Yeah, most of the gigs that when I went on tour, like we're out with Def Leppard or we're playing with Cheap Trick or the Great White, Faster Pussycat, LA Guns, all those cats, we all swim in the same lake together. They're hanging out with the fans too.
Nice.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Now, as we speak, during this shutdown, obviously it's going to be a little bit different. But I think things are going to get cleaned up soon. I really do. Once we get a vaccine, and I'm not pushing or I'm not going to the left or right there. I'm saying that obviously there's going to be some things that are going to be able to help us in the future,
right,
so we can move forward and get back to the normal that we're used to. Only time's going to tell exactly how it's going to play itself out. But from what I'm hearing, all the concerts, the big shows, will be starting up in August and September of next year. The smaller ones, maybe they'll slip through the cracks as well, where you'll see bands playing in May and June. And I see dates that are booked around the UK for all the rock bands in May. And I know they got the Hard Rock Hell Festival they do every single year, and Coachella will be up, and Lollapalooza. Concerts, everything will be back to normal, I would think,
I hope
by
so.
September of next year. In the meantime, we still got to figure out a way how we're going to get through these unprecedented times. And I think one way is music. For everybody, that's pretty much universal. And if you can't go out and play shows, well, guess what? Maybe you do records and put together some wonderful packages for fans, box sets, or and do some live streaming shows. The drive-in theaters are working too.
Yep.
We're finding ways how to navigate these waters.
Right. And it's true. All of our listeners and our friends, music is what is getting us all through. And just sticking on the unprecedented times for just another minute or so, you just did a show in Iowa at Riverfest. Quiet Riot had played, Autograph performed. That had to be weird for you because it was just two of you performing, right? Was it a strange show to do?
Of course, it's challenging. I wouldn't call it strange as we're playing our songs. Mm-hmm. But we had two of the guys because two members of Enuff Z'Nuff have compromised immune systems. So we didn't want to do anything that's going to hurt them,
sure,
or the fans as well. And the people showed up there. There was 1,000 people at that thing. It was great, and they all had masks on. Most of them did, at least. and they were social distancing, and they were enjoying the show.
Great.
And I went out to the crowd at the end, and I took pictures and hung out with everybody. It was fine.
Yeah.
Everybody's walking around smoking pot, having a good time. Cops didn't care about nothing. They just wanted to have a good concert with no trouble. That's exactly what they did. And I played last week. As a matter of fact, I was in Kansas City last week at the Scene, and that was great. There's hundreds of people that were there. We played a small club.
Dang.
And people were smitten by it. I think the audience out there, they're missing rock shows.
Oh, yes.
And we just got to be careful how we do them right now. That's all. I think that everything's going to work out in the long run. I really do. Right now, maybe the shutdown in some ways, as much as it's hurt people, it's helped people to get together, families as well, spend a little more quality time together. And when it all opens up, we'll all appreciate what we've had before.
Oh, for sure. You're so right. I think we are going to have a bigger appreciation for our artists, our live shows. I can't wait to get back out there, I'll tell you. And I know you guys are hankering for it too. So. Oh,
Kiki, I'll tell you, right before, after I did that, the cruise out in, we were all over the place, we started in Miami. And we finished the cruise up. Everything was fine. And then right after that, I jumped on a plane. Enuff Z'Nuff went over to Australia with Winger.
Oh, my gosh.
We played a bunch of shows with them.
Wow.
And then we were told after the seventh show, I think I was in Melbourne, Australia. That's where it was. It was beautiful out there. Australia, what a lovely country. They hail rock and roll out there. And home of AC/DC. They were kind enough, those fans, to let us hang out with them for a few extra days until we actually were able to change our flight and get home, because we were supposed to go to Italy and in England after that and finish our tour. Mm-hmm. And all that got postponed. And we were lucky enough to get back in the States. I flew in at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday, and we shut everything down at midnight. So I got lucky getting back here. And it was so strange. I got back, there was nobody wearing masks, no one doing anything, because no one knew what was really going on. It was just starting up. And this is in March, by the way, in the middle of March. Yeah,
you were right in the heat of it.
And then we realized that, okay, well, it looks like we're going to have a little bit of time off. Let's go in the studio and finish up our record.
Yep, and good thing, right? I mean, you produced a beautiful album, but we'll go back to 1984. We got Donnie Vie, the friend so close to you that he became known to everyone as your brother. You both formed Enuff Z'Nuff, and you got a good crowd following right away. Then your first single, Fingers on It, came out in 86. It appeared in the movie Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. And it still took a bit of time to get yourselves seen by everyone, though, on MTV. What did you guys do between 86 and 89 to lay that groundwork for what was to blow up next?
Enuff Z'Nuff went in the studio and recorded. I have a little place in Blue Island. Mm-hmm. Had a little 8-track Fostex, a couple of Les Paul guitars, and an old Fender P bass, and a 12-string bass I got from Tom Peterson and John Brandt from Cheap Trick. Had a couple of them. And just started recording and just putting music out there. That was it. That was our main focus, and taking any show that we could get. So from 85 to 88, it was Enuff Z'Nuff playing shows with opening for Cheap Trick, BTO, Bachman Turner Overdrive, maybe the Guess Who. Any groups that would come through town, we would talk to the promoters and say, we'll play. We don't care about money. We just want an audience. And I think that really helped us out a lot. And what was the great thing that really opened the doors for Enuff Z'Nuff was we were in the studio. They had the Monster Rock going on in Wisconsin. We were in Lake Geneva recording, doing demos. And Doc McGhee came in there with Scott McGhee, who managed Skid Row, and they were going to make a record there. And there was a plethora of artists that were there at the time. Tupac was in the studio, along with Adrian Belew and the Bears, and Survivor, and Cheap Trick. And we were just lucky enough to, we recorded a couple of songs. We gave the cassette tape to Doc McGhee. And a couple of days later, Doc came up to me and said, I got 3 cassette tapes in my car. 2 of them are your band. I got a friend of mine over at Atco Records. He signed Cinderella and Bon Jovi. I think he'd be interested in your band. We're like, yeah, thanks, Doc. I really appreciate it. We went back to doing what we were doing. And trust me, all day and night, every single day during that recording session in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, was nothing but substance abuse. We were just drinking and partying. No one was new. It was real loosey-goosey. We just wanted to make cool records, and we wanted to have fun and party while we were doing it. And maybe that was one of the reasons that record came out so solid. And lo and behold, a couple months later, after we drank all of Skid Row's champagne, because they had a bunch of champagne in the refrigerator to celebrate when they finished their record. We obviously let the air out of their tire and took all their booze unwittingly, didn't know it was theirs. And we realized that, we better be careful right here because they're being managed by Doc. And we don't want to do anything that's going to ruffle his feathers. But Doc was kind enough to send that tape over to Derek Shulman, and Derek signed the band after one showcase that he's seen in Chicago, which was pitiful. We were out of control at the time because no one really knew what was in store for us. Within a week, our whole lives changed. We went right into the studio to finish the record without any record company assistance. Just did it on our own because they loved the demos. And then we were able to jump onto a tour and go out with Jay Keeley and Ray Gillen and Badlands and take the music around the country and see if anybody was interested in hearing what we were saying. And lo and behold, they were. And MTV grabbed onto that video of New Thing, and I've been chasing the carrot ever since.
It's just crazy because New Thing, Fly High Michelle, everybody knows who Enuff Z'Nuff is. But what was that like going from, you're playing anything you possibly can, any club, any room, anything, to, oh my gosh, we're on MTV, we got the girls, we got the drugs, we got everything we want. How was that feeling for you, or do you remember it?
Well, yeah, of course I do. It was a miracle. We toured around the country in a van. It was just Enuff Z'Nuff. It was 5 guys. Our manager at the time, our day-to-day manager was a guy named Bob Brigham. Of course, Doc McGhee would never come on the road with us because he was too busy with Bon Jovi and Motley Crue and Scorpions at the time. He didn't have Kiss then, I don't think. And so he had his hands full. And we would just get in the van and with our equipment in the van and just drive to every single city, playing shows every single place you could think for, where you could imagine they would have bands play. Small venues and, decent-sized venues as well, until we got the call from Badlands to go out on a big run with them for a few months. And then we were able to procure a tour bus, and that's when the party really started because we'd have the fans on the bus every single night. We had the old Nirvana bus, by the way.
Oh my gosh!
First, we took the Cheap Trick bus out. We leased it, and we went out for a couple of years on that bus, and then we switched over to the Nirvana bus. But I remember the fans coming on every single night just to come on the bus and hang out where the rock stars were at. Not us either. We're talking about the other bands that use those buses because, as I said earlier before, we all swim in the same lake. So when that tour happened, we found ourselves in a position where we can not only travel together comfortably, but we can also write songs as well. And so we did a lot of recording in the buses and getting material ready for the next record. And then in the meantime, we'd show up in different cities everywhere you could think of. And it was all wide open, and there was no rules, no regulations, nobody wearing handcuffs. And all the bands would come out and hang out with each other. So, I'd see the guys from Warrant and Trickster and Cheap Trick, and they all come onto the bus and want to hang out with the band. And then the Poison guys would come by and visit us, and Guns N' Roses, and it was really a good time where we were all celebrating together. And I think it was a wonderful time for Enuff Z'Nuff until the end of that first tour, when the record company gave us a bill and said that we owed them $500,000 because they put up there's a word called recoupable, and they put the money up and they helped us with our videos and helping promote the band. So we learned a lot about business after that very first tour, and it was don't confuse motion with progress. Just because you're out playing gigs and stuff, you really got to keep it together because you don't know what to expect when it comes to be billed at the end of the day for your hard work. And those tours weren't very gratifying financially for us, but they certainly were when it came to elevating our perception as a band. And Enuff Z'Nuff is always appreciated. The fans have always been great to us when it comes to all these rock shows that we do around the country. And no one's talking about making any money out there. We're just talking about going out and playing a great show and having a good time and partying with you.
Yeah,
that's really it. At the end of the day, that's all it is. That's what it is for most of the bands. But you got to look at the bottom line, and you want to make a living doing this, and it's tough because there's a lot of sacrificing when you're in a rock band or a pop band, whoever you are as an artist. You got to leave your family and your friends behind if you believe in your dream.
Absolutely. And I mean, it is a business too, at the end of the day. So as you guys are out there, I know you had a great time. I know you were enjoying the fans. It had to be the most amazing time of your lives, really. But you had no idea that you were building up a bill, an invoice at that time. Nothing ever said to you guys, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? Do we owe money? Do we get money?
There was no internet back then. There was no social media. You want to get out there, it was the old-fashioned way. Like John Bon Jovi said to me, hey, you want it 24 hours a day, go out and get it, take it to the streets. And that's exactly what we did. We're looking for reaching an audience every single night. No one was thinking about anything but that, playing these songs and having everybody lend their ears to what we were trying to do. And at the time, it was probably, and we're talking about 80, 89, record companies were putting out 30,000 records a year. Now it's probably way more because bands are, hip-hop and rap and all the different music that's out there right now. A lot of those cats are doing records right in their houses. But back in those early days, it was all in recording studios. Most of it was recorded on 2-inch tape. It was performances, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you plug in and you play. Mm-hmm. And I miss those days. I still do them. That's how we make records now. But back in the old days, there was something real special about that, where you have to move into an apartment. Everybody's living 3, 4 guys in the one apartment, and your main focus is to record a fantastic record, something in the likes of your favorite bands that you grow up to love. It's very challenging out there, and it's also exciting as well.
But Chip, now what about how you guys had to go out and actually promote your band? Because radio promotion was a big deal. You had to go touring around from radio station to radio station. Do you miss that part of it, or do you think today it's just so much better because you have the internet to just promote everything for you?
Well, I think that back in the old days, it was great having radio. It cost you, it brings truck full of money. You didn't see the dough because record companies usually would pay for it if they were into what you were doing and they believed in you in your band. I got to be honest with you, a lot of favors there. Back in our days when we were making records, Enuff Z'Nuff in the early days, you want to get your songs played, you better have prostitution and cocaine. That's what all the radio stations wanted. Yeah, that is the truth. Okay, at least 99% of them. I'd go to a radio station in the morning with my ATCO representative, and by noon I'd be at a strip club and just hanging out, burning the candle. Guys were drinking. I wasn't really drinking a lot then, but I was still hanging out with our constituents and just bonding with them and trying to get them to believe in the band and the music and play the record. That was my main priority. And back then you had guys like Bill McGaffey and Jeff McCluskey. They were radio promoters. And, it cost a lot of money to have those guys involved. Nowadays, you can do it yourself. But I still think you need a team. At the end of the day, I really believe that strength in numbers.
Yeah, because you can't do everything alone. Everything great anyway.
Yeah, just pushing a button on the internet doesn't mean anything because there's too much product, not enough demand that's out there right now. So I believe you got to do other things. You got to shoot video. You got to travel around. You got to do all these shows you can do, whether it's live streaming or playing at some drive-in. You need to really hustle. That's what we've been doing this record here, making videos and promoting it, doing all the interviews, and just being self-aware of what's around you, all the surroundings, and being respectful. And everybody's doing it. We're all trying to find a spot right now where it's comfortable. So the internet, in one way, is great, but I still believe that in the long run, for any band that's out there, it's nice to have a team behind you. And if you can get somebody that can work the record at radio, and then somebody that knows how to get movies and songs and movies or soundtracks, TV shows, perhaps commercials, those little sync licensing deals, those are good right now to hold you over until it's time to go back on the road. When we first started making records, you couldn't you had to go to record stores and you had to promote them at the stores.
Right.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And all the employees would know who you are, and you'd go in there and you'd have the meet and greets and you'd sign autographs and hang out with people, and you did it for free. You just want people to hear your music and you want to get your songs out there. I think it's a little bit different right now. There's not as many record stores as well. So you got to find different intuitive ways on how to reach an audience.
Now, you had two incredible managers. You had Herbie Herbert and Doc McGhee. I mean, you can't really get much better where you were at that point. Now, Herbie, he managed Santana, Steve Miller, Journey. Doc managed Bon Jovi, like you said, Motley Crue. He's got Kiss. Two mega managers in front of you. What was the biggest takeaway you got from each one of them?
We had Bill McLean, too, for a year when on our 2001 Glam Slam Metal Jam tour, Poison, Warrant, and Quiet Riot. Bill McLean was our manager at that time, too. So we had three great managers.
So what's the biggest takeaway from each one?
Well, I think that, Doc, when he was managing the band, he knew exactly what to do. When we first put the record out, we were just getting ready to release the album. He seen the cover, and he didn't like it, which was Enuff Z'Nuff in a dilapidated hotel room with a bathtub in the middle of the kitchen and motorcycles in the front room and tons of bottles of Jack Daniels and loudmouth soup and smoking. And he said, these songs don't fit this picture. Why don't you, and he points at Donnie's arm and says, why don't you use that, which is a peace sign, tattoo on his arm. He goes, that looks good, and it means good things. So Doc, right away, he took the bull by the horns. He had ideas, and then he put us out on tour immediately. Mm-hmm. We were out there playing shows, and instead of waiting for somebody to take a hold of the band, like a Howard Stern or MTV, which got involved, obviously would help the band immensely. He said, get out there in the street and play out there, and don't just worry about the United States. Go over to Europe as well. Play in England, spread your wings. So Doc was good there. When Doc couldn't manage the band anymore because Bon Jovi basically told him that I need you to focus your attention on me, because he was managing them along with Motley Crue and Scorpions, as I mentioned earlier. He called us on the phone and said, listen, guys, I just can't give you the undivided attention that you deserve, but I want to pass you over to a guy who I consider the greatest manager in the world. His name is Herbie Herbert. And Herbie, heard the band, and obviously we knew about Herbie. But when we first met him, we realized that this is the guy, perfect guy for the job. He knows exactly how to push the buttons, and he put us on another tour and helped kick the numbers up with the record company because we were in considerable debt. And it just gave us some real confidence on just taking the show out to the street. He showed up, as a matter of fact, on the very first show he seen us play. We were in Minneapolis opening for Mr. Big, and they set the equipment up on stage quite differently than normal. The drums were over to the left, and it was like on a line on stage playing. And he watched the show, and afterwards he came on the bus. He goes, that was awful. He goes, what were you guys doing there? That's not the band I signed that was on this tape here. And I said, Herbie, please stick around with us. I go, we were not used to playing like this, where the equipment was not configured correctly on stage, and we couldn't hear each other play, and it was just an awful setup for us. Wow. And you come see us tomorrow. We're playing out in Milwaukee, and he stayed on the bus with me. We hung out all night, talked Journey stories. He had wonderful stories. He's such an astute, smart manager and funny beyond belief. And we stayed up all night hanging out. No drugs, by the way. Just clean living at the time. Maybe a little bit of pot smoke on that big Oscar Mayer Wiener Wagon bus that we were on. And we showed up in Milwaukee, played the show, and at the end of the show, he goes, that's the band I signed! So we won him over after the second show. He was happy. And to this day, I'm still great friends with Herbie Herbert. I consider him one of my best friends. I love him dearly. Mm-hmm. And he's did a lot for Enuff Z'Nuff. If it wasn't for Herbie Herbert, I wouldn't be around right now. He really set the tone and helped put us in a position where people would pay attention to our music. And out of all the bands he managed, and listen, he managed a lot of me. If I'm not mistaken, besides Journey and Steve Miller, he had, of course, Mr. Big, and he had Europe, too. That was a big band, and he had Roxette. So all his bands were all multi-million platinum-selling bands. And Enuff Z'Nuff, we had a couple of gold records, but we certainly didn't see the success commercially as those bands did. But as far as songs go, we definitely had the respect from our catalog of material. And I still talk to him all the time. They're doing a movie on Herbie Herbert, as a matter of fact.
No kidding.
I'm sure it'll come out next year, and I'm sure people will be pleasantly surprised to hear those great stories about Steve Perry strong-arming him on his solo record and threatening to leave Journey unless he got support on his solo records. He's got wonderful stories he'll share with you. In the old days, we'd do so much stuff together outside of music. Every Sunday, I'd go to the San Francisco 49ers football games with him, and Donnie and I would sit out in the stands with the guys with Chef Boyardee hats, cooking lobster and filet mignons for us. And early in the morning, early afternoon, watching the 49ers kicking everybody's ass. So those were wonderful moments, hanging out with all the rock stars there, whether it was Huey Lewis or the guys in Journey or, Carlos Santana. It was really wonderful moments that we had with them. I owe Herbie Herbert everything.
That is so amazing, Chip. Like, seriously. You've had great stuff, really. You've had... Even though, like you said, and even though it's, written down, you guys didn't have the top commercial success, you still have such an amazing following, and really you do have a huge fan base, which is worth its weight in gold, really.
Absolutely. There's not many bands that's had the opportunity that Enuff Z'Nuff has had throughout the years. And just to be able to make records at this day and age, I mean, here we are still touring around the country, still playing music. It really is a miracle. I don't take it for granted. But it was the hard work in the beginning that set the tone for us for now. And you see a lot of the bands that are out there right now. Black Crowes getting ready to go back out on tour again.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys are just realize, hey, you know, we had a special. Let's give it. Let's show the fans what that we appreciate all their time.
Yeah.
And all their support after all these years. And we're still making records. It's not easy out there for anybody. And at the end of the day, if I could find people that just want to get an hour of the day away from all the rigmarole that's going on in the world, just hear some rock and roll, good music, and I catch your attention just for a little while, I've done my job.
Yeah,
These
absolutely.
records aren't going away. This is not like a cup of coffee at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. This is talking about music that's, you know, there's a timeline on some of the stuff, and some of it is timeless. And when I see the rock bands out there putting the newer bands like AC/DC in their new record, I get excited. That gives me hope for the future. And I would hope the fans would feel that way as well, to know that there's going to be music coming down the pipeline from all of our favorite bands.
And they do. I see it. I read the comments off of everyone's channels and socials and everything. And people love when artists release new music from our generation, because it does. It gives you hope. Oh my gosh, you know, there's new music coming. It's great. And everybody loves it. They really, really do. Now, you also worked with Clive Davis. The Clive Davis, he produced, I mean, all the great people, Janis Joplin, Bruce Springsteen, Aerosmith. And he took you guys on and produced your third album at Arista, Animals with Human Intelligence. Now, you've worked with huge people in the record industry. How about, what did you learn from Clive Davis?
Well, I know, first of all, I have nothing but respect for Clive Davis. Grateful that he signed the band with a guy named Mitchell Cohen, and gave us an opportunity to make a great rock record, especially during that time, because it was a change of the guard. You had Nirvana, Mudhoney, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden. It was a whole different scene right there, which, you know, was good. Those are bands that I admire. But the scene was changed, and people were talking about, you know, bands like us that, you know, had to take a step back and let these other bands have their chance in the day in the sun. And totally understandable. A lot of the bands just went away and said, you know, we can't navigate these waters. We have to go get a regular job. We hung in there. We went out and we toured, and it was Clive Davis, the guy that said so. He goes, it's all about songs. And he had an idea when he signed Enuff Z'Nuff. He loved our pop stuff. He said, let's make a great rock record, you know, and give me all that pop stuff you guys have, and I don't care what it takes to get those performances, make it happen. And we did. We went over to A&M Studios in Los Angeles. We recorded a bunch of songs at Music Grinder as well. Great studios out there. One-on-One. We were out there for a week until we got kicked out by Alice in Chains. But there was quite a few bands that were coming in and making records at the time, and we were just lucky that Clive believed in the band, never came down to the studio one time to see what we were doing. Just let us record all those songs. We recorded like the double record.
Wow.
They only put out 12 songs on that Animals of Human Intelligence record, but it showed us that Clive believed in the band, and he wasn't about putting handcuffs on groups. He just wanted to get great performances, because when you put a song on the radio, you don't see smoke machines and people shaking their asses. You just hear the song. And he really believed in what we were doing and gave us a good chance. We actually went out on tour after that record, and we were out with Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, and some great shows, good audiences, but we just couldn't put that record over. That record was considered a failure, and we sold 250,000 records on that album. You know, nowadays I'd be hailed beyond belief if we had those kind of sales. But I think looking back in hindsight, Clive Davis showed me that at the end of the day, it's all about the song. And a really smart guy, and I'm grateful that I had a relationship with him, because he taught the band quite a bit. I remember what he said to me. He says, Chip, if it's 20 years old, it's new again. He's absolutely right. He's got to go back and you got to look at your favorite artists. If you're an artist yourself, got to go look at all your favorite bands' earlier records and stuff, and you'll find things that'll inspire you there. And then take that and turn it into your own.
What is your big love for Cheap Trick? Because you do talk about them a lot, and it seems as if you've, had a huge influence from them. They're amazing, but what is it for you that does it for you with Cheap Trick?
Well, in the early days when Enuff Z'Nuff first started recording, I remember going to see Cheap Trick at the Limelight, and I'd seen them years before that when they were playing clubs before they were big. And they were fabulous. They just tore the house down. Robin Zander's pipes were great. Peterson was playing a 12-string bass. Nielsen, great songwriter beyond belief. I love his guitar playing. And just a rock-solid band. So we opened shows for them in the early days, and here we are later on. We're getting ready to put a record on. I asked Rick if he'd be interested in producing the record, and I gave him a cassette tape. That's what it was big back then. Cassette was so big. And I never heard back from him. And then the record company, when we signed with Atco, Derek Shulman, who used to be in a band called Gentle Giant, asked me, he says, who do you want to produce the record? You guys got everybody in mind? We said, well, we gave one of the demos to Rick Nielsen and Robin Zander at Cheap Trick. We asked Rick if he'd be interested in producing the record, and he says, has he gotten back to you? I said, we haven't heard anything from him. He goes, well, why don't you guys just do it yourself? Because we did all the demos. So Rick almost was the producer on that first Enuff Z'Nuff album with Fly High and New Thing. That would have been great.
Man.
And in any case, I always grabbed onto them because I see them in the clubs playing in the early days, working my way through. I love their sense of balance, where songs are very Beatlesque, a lot of harmonies, real colorful, but still played aggressively. We've always had that approach from day one with Enuff Z'Nuff. And instead of being a guy where I talk about Tchaikovsky and Beethoven and Mozart, you are what you eat. And show me a band without influences, and I'll show you a band that doesn't have a record deal. And we listened to all those groups, and Cheap Trick was one of them that really tripped our trigger. But there's a lot of bands. We love Mott the Hoop. We love the stuff over in England.
Yeah.
Bowie and Zeppelin and Queen. And those are the kind of, we put them all together in a potpourri, and that's how we developed our style of writing, I think.
So cool. Just so cool. I love Cheap Trick, too. I mean, every time I see them, oh, my gosh, they're just amazing.
Yeah, they're solid every single night. No tapes, no sequencers, no guys backstage. Just the four guys. Sometimes they got five. They have Magic on keyboard sometimes playing, but for the most part, it's just a rock-solid outfit, and those guys are they're ageless. It's incredible to go see them live in concert. They're out. They still go out with Aerosmith and some big bands out there touring around the country. Right now, I think they're recording a new record. So you talk about guys who are very profound and prolific. Cheap Trick's right at the top of the heat. And I was lucky enough to get Robin on my solo records. He's singing on All Day and All the Night, which was one of the first songs Cheap Trick did when he auditioned for the band. And I got Rick to play on our Paraphernalia record. He's fabulous on it, playing on Freak. And just incendiary guitar there. And then now Dax Nielsen from Cheap Trick's on half the new Enuff Z'Nuff album, Brainwash Generation. So
awesome.
All I got to do is get Peterson on a song, and I'll have had the whole Cheap Trick.
Well, let's go. You got to get on that. Now, the Kiss cruise, how was that? That had to be amazing.
You can't go wrong when you're playing with guys like Skid Row and King's X and Kiss on the same stage. It's incredible. And how charming they are. Paul was beyond belief, so nice to the band. And I called his son Evan up to play with us on Baby Loves You. I know Paul loved that. And he said he's a big Enuff Z'Nuff fan. He loves our songs. He was asking all kinds of questions. It was wonderful. And Gene, too, just charming. He was out there giving bass lessons for $7,500 a student.
No.
I heard he walked off the boat making over $1 million.
Oh, my. Well, I'm not surprised.
Selling bass guitars. And boy, I wish I could sell my bass guitars for $10,000 with my autograph. I'd sell them every single day. It's unbelievable. It's how they left an indelible mark with the audience, and people just hail that band beyond belief. But we all hung out together every single day, 5 days on the ship. All the fans were out there as well. They were accommodating to not only the fans, but to all the bands. They appreciated us all playing together. I think the shows were great. There wasn't a lot of substance abuse on those tours because people know Kiss don't do drugs.
Yeah.
So people were really good on the boat. Nobody was. I didn't smell any pot smoke anywhere, but I'm sure they were having a great time out there. But for the most part, it was just a real celebration of the finest hard rock and heavy metal for 6 days, and Kiss knows how to throw a party.
Yeah. I mean, even today, another band, oh my gosh, they just get better and better and better.
Yeah, Doc McGhee said to me after the show, the first gig we played with him, he says, Chip, you guys are fabulous. You should have been doing this 10 years ago, because he managed the band when Donnie was singing with us. So now to have me fronting the group, it was very exciting for him to see that I've rose out of the ashes and was able to move forward with the band. And I think that was during a record that we put out, was called Diamond Boy. And the record did very well for us, charted on the Billboard Top 200. We went out and toured around the country with Live Nation on a big tour with Ace Frehley. And that really helped us out a lot. So we did the Kiss Cruise, and then right after that went out with Ace Frehley for 28 dates.
How
could go wrong there? We were in a little van traveling around the country, all four of us, no crew. I think I bring out my tour manager, Beasley, out for half that run. It was basically just the four guys in the band driving around the van. I'd sing the set, hang out with the fans for a couple hours, throw the equipment back in the van, drive to the next city, wash, rinse, repeat. We were playing all nice, warm places. It was a really great tour. And Ace was absolutely charming to a fault. I go back with him in 1988. So it was for him to hand choose and hand pick Enuff Z'Nuff to go out on a whole tour with him. That meant a lot to me. And right after that, we went out and did more shows with them too. So we got a great relationship with those cats. And I love the Spaceman. And boy, he brings it every single night as well. Those fans really loved it. They weren't expecting what Enuff Z'Nuff brought to the party. I think we did a fine job. I'm very grateful to have that opportunity and hope we can do it again with him.
But how coincidental was that right after the Kiss Cruise, you end up going on tour for 30 dates or something like that with Ace? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible. I couldn't believe their agent called, and a guy named Kevin, and he says, Chip, you guys be interested in doing a run with Ace Frehley? And I didn't even ask about the money. I said, of course he would. And I hooked him up with my manager, who was a guy named Scotty Ludwig. He manages L.A. Guns and London Choir Boys and Junkyard, Jet Boy. He's got a bunch of bands, and they were freaked about it. And our record company, Frontiers, was pretty smitten by it as well, because they had no idea that we had a big major tour in conjunction with that record. And it really helped us to get out there and reach new faces and get records out. And in the old days, you couldn't sell records at the shows. Nowadays, go to the merch booth. I don't care who the band is, and you'll see CDs and full vinyl records at the venues. So that was nice for us. We got a chance to turn a lot of people on to our music and reach a lot of people at the live show. And from there, we haven't stopped touring until this shutdown. We've been busy working, playing hundreds of shows around the country. So I'm just hoping that we can turn things around again, because, boy, it'd be nice to go out with Ace and do some more work. I know he's got a new record out called Origins, too.
Yes.
And he's in the studio as we speak right now, recording guitars for his next record. So a lot of these musicians are staying busy, and they're all planning on 2021, where the world opens back up and we get a chance to go out and support our music.
Well, I'm kind of sitting back saying it's a great time for all of you to be extremely creative and just to, get your mind on and, do what you love and get it all on paper and go out, and it's going to happen again. I just know it.
I agree. I did the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp last year with Paul Stanley, and Paul said, the thing I like about Enuff Z'Nuff is you guys write songs that are upbeat and are positive, and even if it's stuff that's where we're dealing with, promiscuity, that's all part of rock and roll. Those are the warts and scars that we carry. So I hope when these bands come out with records next year, I hope it's not all politicized and it's just, singing about having, families and good times and partying and burn the candle at both ends, because that's what we want to celebrate. Nobody wants to celebrate grief.
No, they don't. But, you're staying upbeat and positive, and I love that about you. But now, when Donnie left the band the last time, your mom told you to get out there and sing. Now, were you hesitant to take over the role of lead singer? Or did you just say, you know what, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, well, come on, let's face it. I think one day it'll be recognized that he's right up there with the greatest singers of our generation. He's fabulous. I've seen it, folks, in the studio. I was there producing those records. That guy was singing those songs in one take. And we weren't punching in notes. There was no Pro Tools or anything back then. It was guys singing and playing. It was about live performances, and that was real special. I mean, he knew how to engage. And a great singer is a guy who could, as a good liar, a guy who could turn a melody line and you believe every word he says. There's only a few guys out there that like Freddie Mercury and Steve Perry and and Robin Zander, and there's a few of them out there, but to find a singer that, every single word he says, you believe him, that's very, very challenging. And so when he left the band in 2013, it wasn't really my mom, but she always told me, if he's not going to do it, you sing the songs, honey, you have a beautiful voice. And I knew my pipes were nothing like him, but I can accommodate him. And when we sang on records together, I know it sounded solid and fabulous. But it was Donnie himself that came to me and said, look, if you're going to continue moving forward with the name Enuff Z'Nuff, you should sing the songs. At least the audience will know once you step on stage that it's Enuff Z'Nuff. And I thought that was a nice vote of confidence on his part. And that's what I did. I had no idea where it was going to take us. We did tons of shows before we actually had any action. And I was lucky that in 2015, Derek Shulman, my old president over at Atco Records, who was a singer in Gentle Giant, came to me and said, Chip, how have you been doing? I said, I haven't heard from you in 20 years, Derek. I'm hanging in there. How about you? He says, great. He goes, I want to do another record with you. I was shocked. I said, really? So I went and we did Clown's Lounge. And that was the start of everything, because as soon as Clown's Lounge came out on Frontiers, Enuff Z'Nuff jumped in the bread truck, and we went on tour again immediately and started playing shows. And that was a good vote of confidence right there, having a record to tour with. And then, of course, everything else follows suit right there. But I think at the end of the day, those little opportunities that happen, folks, anybody listening to this, you got to strike when the iron's hot. Someone calls you and they want to help you, and even if you don't think you can do the jobs, tell them yes you can and learn it later. Do not give up an opportunity, and that's what we have. At the end of the day, who cares who drives the bus? We just want to get to that picnic.
Definitely an awesome piece of advice from you. I totally agree with you. Now, your newest release, Brainwash Generation, you've got Donnie singing lead on the track Strangers in My Head. Great reviews. So how did you both come together on this project, and where are you guys at today? You're going to be doing more music together.
I believe we will. We're doing good today. Things have been looking up for Enuff Z'Nuff this year, even though we're going through these challenging times.
Yeah.
One thing that we're doing, I think that's fabulous, is we put the start of it all was to put this record out and have a couple songs in it that Donnie and I were part of, so it keeps the Enuff Z'Nuff legacy intact.
Right.
People see that there's no one's fighting, there's no arguing, there's no division.
Yeah.
And then Donnie, after we recorded the record and put it out, he called me to play in his solo record, Beautiful Things. So we did a track called Party. And he asked me to come down and shoot the video as well. I thought that was great. Both of us together on stage again playing. People loved it.
Yeah.
It was exciting. It was exciting to me. I got to be honest with you, to see that after all these years, that sometimes time heals all wounds.
Yeah, it had to feel good.
And it just felt real nice to be able to be on a sound stage again, stand next to him on stage playing the songs. I think people will be pleasantly surprised when they hear his Beautiful Things record. And I know he's happy about the Brainwash Generation record because he tells me he loves the songs on there. He loves Drugland Weekend and, of course, Got My Money Where My Mouth Is and Fatal Distraction. And Dax Nielsen did a great job playing drums on those. And I think Donnie recognized that and seen that I'm not doing anything to hurt the legacy of the band. If, he wants to do a solo record, I'm just going to support him as well. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. We've had an illustrious career, and nobody would know me or him if it wasn't for each other.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that we got a chance to still make records together, and I think this will open up the doors for maybe another collaboration for the next Enuff Z'Nuff album, which I'm already recording right now.
Oh, my gosh. You're already on to the next thing.
3 songs in. First one's great. Doctor, I'm Going Down, Can You Save Me? There's some wonderful moments on this record. It's a little different than normal Enuff Z'Nuff. I think it's not cock rock, that's for sure. It's very cool. I like bands like Squeeze.
Yep.
And of course I like Sparks and Pink Floyd. And I think I'm mixing it up on this record a little bit with a potpourri of all my favorite bands, but from a different generation. I think people will be pleasantly surprised when they hear the record. And I'm going to get some heavyweights to come down and play on the new Enuff Z'Nuff album as well. I've already talked to a few different musicians. I don't want to mention any names and throw them under the bus yet, but I promise you there'll be some big leaguers and some nice names on this next record. Don't know what I'm going to call it yet. I'm just going to get all the songs together first, and then I'll take it from there. And I also finished another record as well, doing all Beatles songs, and I think people are going to love that. It's called Hard Rock Night.
Nice.
And it's a 12-song record. I have Tony Fennell from Ultravox, one in Rome, playing on the record with me as well. And just picture the Beatles doing rock metal.
That is great. Like, you're just, oh my gosh, you're just not stopping, which is what you should be doing, is not stopping.
Thank you.
Now, your good friend Robert Fleischman said to me not too long ago that it's important to rearrange the furniture. I know he's going to love this, meaning that you should always, reinvent yourself. So how are you reinventing yourself at this time?
Well, listen to the records I've put out in the last 3 years. A lot different than the earlier Enuff Z'Nuff stuff. I mean, obviously there's going to be some similarities there, but for the most part, I think I've taken chances and taking a different approach to making these albums right here. Great performances live. Of course, we've always thrived on that, but I think just the song structures, these songs, there's a lot of fodder out there, as I mentioned earlier before, and I think that I've captured some maybe magic in a bottle, for lack of a better term. And I like the fact that I do these records and then I go out and I play them live in concert, where most artists, they put a new record out and they're just playing their old catalog stuff. They're not doing anything new. Maybe one song or so. I've been mixing it up pretty good, and it's been a nice potpourri of early Enuff Z'Nuff and later Enuff Z'Nuff stuff. And I think that at the end of the day, the fans are the ones that are going to make the decision, and we're taking a different approach. I don't want to freak anybody out and try to do something where there's no guitars and it's a record that's more like an R&B record or a colorful, a flamboyant potpourri of music that came from the 80s. I want to be new and I want it to be fresh. So yep. I'll take some chances on performances and sounds, and I think at the end of the day, I'll let the people make a decision on if we're going in the right direction. But right now, I want to please myself before I do anything else. If these songs stand the test of time with me, then I'll let everybody else hear them. And right now, I think we have a nice collection of new material that I can't wait for people to hear them. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself. The Brainwashed Generation record is my main focus right now, pushing that new album and letting people, the new audience, hear about what we're all about, because we're not a rock band, we're not a pop band, we're not an alternative band, we're not a metal band, we're all of those above. And I think at the end of the day, when you hear these songs, you go, yeah, he's got some. It's hard to pinpoint what kind of style Enuff Z'Nuff has. Maybe that's been something that's perhaps wounded us in the past. But that's the way I'm going to go with it. At the end of the day, I want to be a guy that just puts out these great songs about everyday experiences that we went through, that perhaps you went through them as well.
And to finish this off, what is the best memory that you have with Donnie throughout this entire crazy ride of yours?
Oh, there's so many of them, Kiki. The early days recording at 2231 Prairie in Blue Island, a little apartment we used to have there. We had no electricity, but Donnie was an electrician, so he knew how to wire things in. So when the lights went on in the morning in the hallway at the apartment, they would come into our apartment as well, so we can have power so we can record. And then the telephone, same thing too. He climbed up the pole and hooked it into somebody else's line, so we were able to get telephone calls periodically. If anybody else picked up the phone, we had to hang up immediately, though. we did some crazy stuff back then. But those early recordings, playing over in Blue Island and over at Grandpa McNulty's basement in the middle of the night, when it was just him and I, those were special. We come up with, probably wrote 100 songs then, and then we turned our friends on to them, and everybody goes, "Man, this stuff is great. You guys you should have a band." And we said, "We are a band. We're just starting it right now." We go, "Man, we can't wait to hear these songs live." And that gave us a little bit of confidence, to be honest with you. But maybe to go a little farther than that, probably on those first tours where we actually got in the bus. We were on the Cheap Trick tour bus and travel around the country opening for Badlands. Those are great moments where fans would come out. There'd be 1,000 fans at the bus waiting to get an autograph. And I'd be out there for 3-4 hours signing stuff for people. And maybe that's why a lot of the rock audience out there is stuck on and held on and embraced Enuff Z'Nuff, because we're just four cats from the South Side who believe in miracles. And we had an opportunity, and we took advantage of that. As far as there's so many stories out there. Me on tour, hanging out with Cheap Trick until 5 o'clock in the morning at the studio, eating pizza, hanging out with Peterson, talking stories about Mott the Hoople and the early fodder of Cheap Trick. Those were great moments too. Or maybe perhaps at Andy John's house in the middle of the night, jamming with Eddie Van Halen until 5 o'clock in the morning. Those are great. There's wonderful stories there, and I'll save them for my book. But the stuff that Donnie and I did together, most of it, I wouldn't change one thing. Great tours around the country, playing stadiums and sheds, opening for Def Leppard or John Cougar Mellencamp. Those are great days. And the little stories that are behind those things, they take too long. We'd be on the radio for 3 or 4 days talking about it, because I have some wonderful stories.
I'm sure
and
you
I
do.
want to share them one day, and maybe I'll do it in the book, or maybe we'll do a documentary. We'll see what the future holds for us.
Well, I mean, that is just wonderful, and we totally appreciate you sharing. Again, everyone was so excited to, know that you were coming on and to just share at least some of it with us. We truly, truly appreciate it. And we all appreciate that you're still out there for everyone, even though you're not physically out there. Well, you are a little bit, but we're just really happy. And everyone can visit your site at EnuffZ'Nuff.com. You're on Instagram at ChipZ'Nuff. Same thing on Twitter. And everyone can visit EnuffZ'Nuff.com to get all of your music. And we wish you all the best, Chip. Hopefully you're going to get back there out on the road for all of us to come over and say hello.
Hey, I can't wait. Listen, you can get our music, Apple Music, or you can go to Google or Spotify. Like you said, EnuffZ'Nuff.com, along with Instagram, Enuff Z'Nuff Instagram, and also Facebook. And then, of course, you can get me too. I'm on Twitter all the time. Well, not all the time, but I'm on there quite a bit to let people know what's going on. And that's the social media we have right now until further notice. But a quick shout out to our military, our police, all our nurses and doctors and surgeons, the people who work at the stores in the front lines every single day, the local drug dealers across the street from 7-Eleven. They're all important to us. A big shout out to everybody, and let's all say a prayer for each other that starting in 2021, things will start opening up and we can get back to what we all do, which is live our lives.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much, Chip. Really, we appreciate you.
Thanks, Kiki. You and your producer, appreciate you guys taking time to talk to me.
Thank you, Chip. You're the best.
God bless. Cheers.